Thank you, Madam Chair. Ranking Member Reed, if I could be an honorary New Englander, I would be thrilled.
We won't tell your constituents.
I said honorary, not honorary.
Your state's small enough, you might qualify.
Well, I really appreciate all of the witnesses today. I think it was Commissioner Bernhardt who at the outset reviewed the deeply failing grade given by the ASCE to our infrastructure. The chairwoman also reviewed that they're about to give another grade, which we expect will also be well below a D. There are some areas, rail, that are only a C, but there is nothing that is above a C. We've got D grades in roads, aviation, transit, inland waterways, rail and ports get Cs. If my kids came home from school with grades like this, my wife and I would be deeply disappointed, and why we consider it acceptable year in and year out as federal legislators for us to deliver this sort of a report card to the American people about our shared investment in the infrastructure that moves our families, our goods, and tries to keep us competitive. I think is completely unacceptable. So I'm going to agree with what every member of the panel said. We need to find sustainable bipartisan ways to finance America's infrastructure. Those of us who have the opportunity to occasionally travel overseas and see the world-class, cutting-edge, competitive infrastructure that our competitors enjoy recognize just how much this is putting us at risk and just how much this is causing us to fall behind. If I might, Mr. Mortimer, on Amtrak, as someone who rides Amtrak virtually every day to and from my home state, I understand passenger rail is a critical part of our transportation network. It reduces congestion, improves efficiency, connects towns and cities across our country. Does continued funding for Amtrak through discretionary investment help take cars off the road and reduce pressure on the highway system, in your view? And does it make sense for Congress to continue to fund Amtrak really only through discretionary funding rather than having a predictable and dedicated source of funding for rail?
Sure. Thanks for the question. I think, look, passenger rail is a critical component of the national transportation system from the business community's perspective. There are parts of the country, and in particular, where you're from in Delaware, the Northeast Corridor, where passenger rail service is critical to mobility. And so those are places we believe needed investments, and there's got to be a variety of sources. We're very excited with the new leadership at Amtrak and looking at trying to operate more like a business. We believe there's some great opportunities there for growth and expansion. At the same time, one of the challenges Amtrak's always had is to get support in Congress. We have service in a lot of parts of the country that perhaps the ridership needs don't meet it. And so we would like to see focused investment in Amtrak and passenger service to those communities that most need it, and that it's a partnership. It can't just be the federal government. The federal government can play a role, but it's got to be a public-private partnership of everyone coming together. And I think, you know, in Delaware, the business community works with your elected leaders to make sure that Amtrak service in Delaware is good. And I think those opportunities are there. How we fund it through the federal government, discretionary or not discretionary, I'm not sure that I have the exact answer to that question, except that there is a federal role, and it's a partnership, though. The federal government can't overtake and just do all of it. It's a partnership as we move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mortimer. One of the funding vehicles that is a partnership, as you just testified, Ms. Osborne, is Tiger. My state relies on a variety of different transportation means. We're part of the SEPTA regional rail network. We benefit from the Port of Wilmington. We have a civil aviation terminals in several places. As you said in your testimony, Tiger is popular because of its flexibility to support a wide range of uses and funding recipients. Would you agree we should invest more in Tiger, obviously? And what can we do in Congress to support and empower local government transportation decisions through that? And tell me, if you would, about the economic importance of investing in rail and transit capacity and train stations and the role that Chrissy grants might play.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Starting from the latter and talking about the importance of investing in rail infrastructure, you know, one of the great innovative financing tools in rail is value capture, and that tells you a lot about the importance of investing in rail. It often creates value next to it so that you can take some of those increased property values and put it back into the system to support its maintenance and its operating. That shows you right there what a value that investment is. It creates a center of gravity. It brings a focal point for development in an area. When I was at USDOT, one of the things we worked on between Federal Transit and THUD was the fact that in many cases when we invest in rail, we create so much excitement and development around that infrastructure that we we increase the cost of living there to the point where those that are transit dependent can't afford to then take advantage of the service and be close by. And it's just a sign of what a huge level of demand there is for this kind of transportation, but we are holding the supply very low, making sure that only people who have a lot of money can compete to get into those communities. So we definitely need to reach deeper into that demand and make sure we're providing those centers of gravity for our communities.
Thank you, Ms. Osborne. I'd like to thank the whole panel. Thank you, Madam Chair.